pushing and telling and forcing people to do this instead of actually saying, you know what's really valuable? To think of it this way. Could we co-create, a way of being able to achieve what you need to achieve, but building these values and principles that can really help you work, right? So that's where I think that it's not a transformation if you're having to arbitrate every single thing that people do to make sure that this happens, right? That's more like the Agile press gang.
Welcome to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get results, more leads and sales. I am your show host, Josh Ramsey, and today on the show, we have Andrew. And I'm really excited to have Andrew on the show. His show intro reads like a fantasy novel, adventurer, clairvoyant, alchemist, l'homme mystérieux. I can't even pronounce that word. I love the fact that you put in those words and then say that they can't be applied to you, Andrew Burrows. But you've been working in agile organizations, and we're going to have a great conversation about marketing. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, thank you for having me, Josh. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, I feel like I've been on a little bit of a fantasy adventure already just to get into this conversation. I was getting blocked with VPNs. I had to, change HTML settings and all sorts of stuff in the digital landscape just to get to this moment. So we've been kind of crunched into a conversation through a bit of adventure. And in a way, I think that kind of says something about what I've learned about your approach to organizations, to marketing, where there is this kind of there's an adventure, there's a lot of responding to kind of the changing environment and having to be resourceful. Am I on the right scent or am I completely off here? Can you use that as a segue?
It's actually a great segue, because I think so much of what we have to do in marketing today, and where I think agility can help, is to challenge so many of the base assumptions and the way that we would just approach work, right? I love the way that you open this, right? Which is around, we're here to do better marketing. We're here to create more leads. We're here to drive our marketing strategy in service of our business result. And it's funny to me how a lot of the companies and the people I speak to, when we talk about agile marketing, it's almost the agile whitewash of marketing, right? Rather than the optimization of the craft and really bringing that through in a way that drives those results. So, no, to me, you should have a starting plan, you should have a starting vision, but you should be prepared to deviate based on what you learn pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like such a meta level of marketing being around trends, around, what's interesting, what platforms are getting traction, and having to kind of really respond in the moment, to then not kind of sipping our own Kool-Aid too much, where it's like, as you say, we can agile. Okay, well then we got to agile everything. Let's agile it up. And it's like, well, hold on. What is the function of this thing that we're doing as opposed to the thing itself? Let's not get too worried about this thingness. And yeah, so I love you bringing us back to that kind of the foundational, like, is it working? Is it helping? Is it useful?
Well,
as opposed to like, is it hot right now? Oh my gosh.
Well, it's funny, right? Because, when I start working with a client, and typically it'd be something like, we want to transform, we want to be more agile, right? The very first question I actually ask them would be, what would be better for your business? Would it be better to transform your marketing organization to be more agile, or disband marketing? What would actually be a better results driver for the business? And it's a deliberately challenging statement, and people will get defensive from that. But it really hones in on, why do we have a marketing organization, right? What is a marketing organization there to do in modern day organizations? And you hear a lot of things like, give leads to sellers, or increase our knowledge and awareness of the brand in the marketplace, or people just aren't aware of how our products are better, right? And those are all great, but they're all outcomes, right? They're all business drivers. It's not getting to the purpose of marketing. So what we really hone in on is, To take my mother-in-law, for example, my mother-in-law is very loyal to certain brands, right? She's very habitual in her approach. So if there's a different brand or a different product or something better, it's not in her instinct to go and look for that. So how would we speak to her in a way she wants to listen, convince her to do something different, and act in a way that's going to drive that marketing strategy and drive those business results, right? We're more of a probability engine or a behavioral science than we are a production house. And the problem I've seen with most organizations today, and I have huge empathy for the CMOs in this situation, right? Because what is it? I think last time I checked, the average tenure of a CMO is about 3 years. You're coming into an organization, you're inheriting that. You want to optimize it, and agility presents itself as here's something I can bring in that I can optimize. But what are you optimizing? Because if you're built as a production house, then you can optimize your ability to build production. You'll still be, talking in tongues to your customers because the actual experience that you're creating isn't improving. You're just creating lots of stuff better. So I think that it's impossible to do an agile transformation without fundamentally understanding, what is the modern marketing organization today? How does it work? What are the questions we should be asking ourselves, right? How should we be thinking? What's the expectation we should have of each other? How should we work with the business? And then saying, how do we almost reconstitute ourselves to best deliver that? And I think that's really, at least as far as the agile side of it goes, it's very easy to spread a veneer of that across the top of your organization. But, the actual results you'll see from that are pretty small compared to what you actually need to do, which is to increase the probability that a customer will consider and take an action that aligns with your marketing strategy. And most organizations aren't built to do that.
Yeah, man, there's a lot in there to unpack for those wondering furiously what CMO even stands for. That's a Chief Marketing Officer. We just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Apologies.
But when you were talking to me, no, not at all, not at all. We just kind of want to take out the jargon, the mystery, and like you say, it's so easy for a marketing department to market to the rest of the organization that we're now agile. We know how to do that. We can market to everyone. Okay, this is now, look, we got new posters. You see, look, this is the new agile thing. So when you were speaking about this production house, I kind of thought of this like machinery, factory, assembly line, push out the TikToks, increase the funnel, let's get more numbers in the top there. If we take that image and we contrast it against this agile room, what's in the agile room? Everything? What are they wearing? What are the machines in there?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more windows, maybe there's better ventilation. Maybe a few more colors. I don't know. I've got this kind of contrast in my head of like this dark industrial complex and then something else. Do you want to use that? Is that useful to you?
Well, it is. It's actually great because it segues into, I said when I start working with companies, I say, what would be better to transform your organization or disband marketing? The second question I ask would be, okay, you're agile. What's the difference, right? People always say we're going to go faster when we're agile, right? Are people going to type faster? Are we going to talk faster? Like, what are we going to do that's actually going to make us go faster? Like, tell me what the difference is, right? If I was to take a marketer and an agile marketer and put them next to each other and watch them work, how would I know which one's the agile one, right? So it really has to nail down into exactly those behaviors and those conversations, because transformation is scaling the adoption of a new way of working, right? And people have to embrace that. So where you're heading there is a really good question.
Hold on. Transformation is the scaling of the adoption of a new behavior. Did I get that right? I just love that line.
Pretty much.
Is that what it was?
I think
transformation is the scaling of the adoption. Yeah, I get that. Yes. Sorry, I've just never heard it said like that, and I just wanted to highlight it for everyone listening.
Well, thank you. It's also why it's really important that any transformation work is a pull from people, not a push, right? So the worst way to get somebody to do something is to tell them to do it, right? And this actually comes back to, I started I used to, I joined marketing in 2013 by accident. And before that, I made video games. And in 2007, I started to do, I was a producer and we wanted to do Scrum. So I read Scrum and XP from the trenches, decided I could do this. And 9 months later, nothing worked. My team was unhappy. Our product was awful. I'm running around telling people to like go to meetings, attend our stand up, right? And I'm saying, what are your three questions? And making them do that. And then I'm like, this sucks. Like, why?
This is
Why?
really,
I can see
this is
the
the worst
value in
game
it, but
ever.
right, why am I having to do this? And I realized I was the fundamental root cause of all issues. And one of them was that I'm pushing and telling and forcing people to do this instead of actually saying, you know what's really valuable? To think of it this way. Could we co-create, a way of being able to achieve what you need to achieve, but building these values and principles that can really help you work, right? So that's where I think that it's not a transformation if you're having to arbitrate every single thing that people do to make sure that this happens, right? That's more like the Agile press gang, right? Which seems to happen kind of at scale. Like, how do we actually make people want this is a huge part of that. So we have to understand, how does our marketing organization need to think and operate to be successful? How does operating in an agile way enable that to happen? And I typically work with, mid-sized to enterprise companies. What you then have is very efficient production mechanisms where different parts of the organization can produce marketing rapidly and at scale. But then you end up with a competing or conflicted customer experience, right? That's when you can end up with a chief marketing officer for a company you might be targeting or whatever it might be, getting 6 emails from the same company on 6 different topics in one day, right? So a good way to think about it is kind of abstract, but almost to think about the symphony and the orchestra, right? You have the parts of your organization that are saying, based on our business strategy, what is our marketing strategy? What are our products? Who are our audiences? What differentiates us? What's the value that we bring? What's the messaging that we really need to come through here? And then how do we bring that to life through the orchestra, through the myriad different components, from digital execution to email to SEO to paid media to all those different aspects, into one song that people want to hear, right? Into one piece of music that will compel people to listen and to act and to move forward from that point. So how do we start to orchestrate and stitch those different parts together? And I think once we've got the point of view on those three things, right? Why we exist as a company, how that agility should be kind of built in, and what's that core fundamental workflow and approach of how we're going to operate, then we can start to sort of scale the agility, because people can actually see how they connect and why this is good and what they're accountable to and all those different elements.
Yeah, that's awesome. Listening to you speak about agility in marketing, I mean, there's organizational implications as well. It kind of leaves me thinking, like, what else should you be doing? Like, this is it. Like, I think we're looking potentially here at the evolution of marketing in organizations. You either agile, or you're kind of, I don't know. Are there other, maybe there's other language to describe different modalities that people are promoting, and we can get caught into kind of this camp and that camp and this book and that book and this guru and that guru.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're talking about a healthy, communicative, responsive, passionate, mission aligned, revenue conscious group of people that are trying to grow a business. I mean, we can call it agile, but maybe this is just marketing 2.0, which is where we all need to be going. Is this very contrarian to other schools? Are there kind of different schools, or is this just the future of marketing?
It's a great point. I do find myself a little contrarian, I think, to some of the stronger viewpoints in the market. And I think it's that typically today, if you were going to scale, if you were going to embrace agility or try to scale agility, you would naturally gravitate to one of the more well-established frameworks or groups, right? Because they're well understood and there's a lot of marketing behind them, right? Something like SAFe people use for marketing. People use Scrum. That's pretty well known. There are certification schools around those. I'm kind of agnostic. I'm framework agnostic, right? I mean, if you have a framework and it works for you, great, keep doing it. I find a lot of them don't, mostly because marketing, it comes down to rate of change, right? And if we think about an agile marketing organization, what is the rate of change of a healthy organization like that? Something like Scrum or SAFe is very good for releasing episodic content, right? It can help you organize to say every 7 to 14 days, here's the next thing that we will launch. But I think a really good agile marketing organization is much more like the live news or the weather channel, right? Where you have a constant you have a plan and a structure and something that you're working to, but you're very, very, very adaptive, right? If a tornado hits, we can't talk about it 2 weeks from now. We're going to get our reporter down in the field and have that footage of
Yeah.
them standing in the wind, right? So
Yeah.
we have to be very adaptive. And that's where I think a lot of frameworks collapse. And you hear things like, I remember once trying to use Scrum with a marketing team, and we would do kind of the planning and they'd finish their 2 hour planning session, 4 hour planning session. Then they start working, and then you'd hear this executive wants this changed on this page because they're speaking at this event, and there's going to be people from other companies that could potentially buy it. And I want the team to go, cool, that's a really good opportunity. We can actually drive revenue in that way. How do we support and embrace you? And what the team says is, well, we just did our planning. And it's like, that's to me when there's an issue here, because have you even validated that what you planned is more valuable than this? I mean, where's our goal is to change the behavior of people to drive revenue for the organization, right? Not to deliver what we said we'd deliver every 2 weeks. And that's where I think things can start to get difficult, right? With a lot of the existing frameworks that have that kind of rigor sort of built into them. I also believe, kind of following on from some of your other statements, marketing organizations today don't have a choice about whether or not to be agile, right? We're past that. We're focused on customers. We're all agile, whether we like it or not. And the only difference is how agile we are and how good we are at it, right? We have to be responsive and engage our customers in the most competitive way. And agility is one lever that can help you be competitive in that area. And I think about things like, where I say when you're already agile, you may just not realize it. If you look at something like somebody who's rolling out the Adobe marketing stack, right? And you might be focused on, through this marketing stack, how are we expediting the creation of content in our organization to get all the assets we need in our DAM, right, in our asset manager.
Yeah.
Great, okay. Optimize that. Build that into your organization. But what are you optimizing here? Are you optimizing the volume of assets that are in your asset manager, or are you optimizing the customer experience that you're building for the customer and the results that you get from that? Because if we don't think about this correctly, we're just going to increase the number of unused assets or increase the number of the quantity of things we can draw from without actually having a direct impact on the revenue that we bring through, right? So we have to think about our organization as a holistic agile organization that stitches those bits together, both to drive marketing results from the work that we put out, and also to make sure that the investment, these huge MarTech investments that we're seeing actually drive revenue for the business, and don't come back to bite someone because what you've done is just optimize your content creation process, right? So I think there's lots of. It's interesting you call it marketing 2.0. I don't know the right word for it. I don't think it's agile marketing either. But we're at an inflection point, right? If we look at all the kind of innovations that are going on right now, from all the chat GPT stuff where I don't think people are thinking about that in the right way, through to, I still love that 2019 Cognizant report on the marketing jobs of 2030, right? And you don't see anything in there, for example, on performance marketer or content marketer or product marketer. You have haptic designer and AI bias engineer, and you have master storyteller, right? And all these roles are things that could only really operate in an agile way. And I think we have to be really open to how we set our organizations up to be able to thrive in what's coming and not to be chasing, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
soapbox a little bit there, but
No, it's. I guess it also helps that you've got a nice voice to listen to. But I think the resounding the resounding piece that I took there is just ear to the ground. If we're not listening to what's coming, we
yep,
we we just we're gonna get run over by it. And as you say, the exponential rate of change. We could have a chat for another 2 hours about different technologies that have popped up in the last week.
yeah,
And
right,
I think what I was kind of wrapping my head around as you were speaking is just how much thinking and strategy, how careful we need to be as marketers, not and careful not in the way that we need to be. We don't mustn't take risks and we mustn't try bold things, but it's so easy to waste time in the marketing department because all the other departments that are looking in, we could do whatever we want, really. And nobody's going to bat an eyelid. We're only going to have to be accountable for it in 3 months anyway, because that's
hmm,
when some number will pop up on some presentation. So the
yep.
level of accountability that we have to our CMO, to our internal team, to ourselves. That's why I love marketing, because it kind of is this, we started with these words like clairvoyant, alchemist, homme mystérique, and this is what people think about marketing. They're like, I don't know what they're doing there. They say it drives revenue. I hope so. And what I've heard just in your last soapbox moment, which again I got no problem with, was just this call back to, is it driving behavior change? Is it staying? Are you staying current? Are you open to pivoting? Are you open to change?
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I think it's a timely reminder of the need to keep our ears to the ground and to be humble enough to change, to hold our ideas loosely. Again, now maybe I'm on my soapbox, but that's what I got from what you're saying, and I think it's a wonderful reminder.
I think your summary is really powerful. I think leading into the humbleness is incredibly powerful, right? Because exactly to your point, if we have our ears to the ground and we're kind of detecting what comes up, unless we're incredibly humble about everything, it's going to be very hard to analyze and embrace the need to change, right? But I have to say, I mean, I mentioned before that I got into marketing, accidentally, and I did. I was in software development for, my gosh, I started when I was 19 years old. I started work, and I was in software development all the way up to when I joined IBM in 2013. And I'd always worked for bootstrap kick, companies that were started by an individual or two people, right? So I joined IBM in 2013. I didn't know I was joining marketing. I'd never worked for a company this size. I'd never experienced anything like that, right? The idea that the marketing department was 5,000 people was crazy by itself. But I'm so thrilled that I found my way into marketing because two things, right? One, I've grown to respect the craft so much. Like when I started, to me it was I would kind of look at marketing the way I'd look at software development, and I would try to break it down into the same sort of I try to manage it, right, or help it or support it in the same way that I would support software development. And what I learned over time there, which is fantastic, was that marketing is completely different, right? It has a completely different ebb and flow, a completely different craft, a completely different mindset. It's something really unique that I don't think is always respected, right, outside of people who really understand marketing. So I love to advocate for that, right? Because there is something when you watch incredible marketers bring together different people from across an organization and align all their different points of view in a singular way that could speak to and compel somebody to consider what you're doing. That's real alchemy, right? It's like incredible to see it. So I've grown incredibly respectful and grateful for all the opportunity to just see marketers excel in that kind of way. The other reason I'm so excited to be in the marketing field is that I personally believe over the next 10 years we're going to see some of the most innovative thinking and ways of working grow from marketing over any other industry, because we are closest to the customer. We can test and learn and scale at a rate other parts of the organization can't. You could argue that sales is maybe closer to the customer, but I don't think sales can learn at the rate that marketing can learn. So then it's going to come down to how do we then turn that learning into the competitive advantage for our entire organization, right? And really drive toward those marketing-led organizations that I think will be incredibly interesting, from an organizational structure to organizational politics to how people work to all those different angles over the next 10 years or so. So I'm really excited from that side of things, just to be a part of this and just to see where it's all heading. I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. We were recently doing some research into propaganda, uh, and the root of propaganda being, the propagation of belief. So if you believe
Yeah,
something, it's you have this kind of duty bound onus to share that belief, and especially if you believe it's the truth. Well, then and with you speaking about aligning different departments and leaders within an organization, again, it's this wonderful picture that you've brought of you use the word alchemy, but it's aligning messaging as well. And we've heard that, I'm sure you've heard that in working with a client when they have a brand script or they have a piece of collateral that really captures the essence of the innovation or whatever it is that this company is doing excellently, that all of a sudden all the meetings change, all of a sudden all the internal emails change. It's all of a sudden we're not talking about the product. We're talking about this thing, that we've given words to. And as you say, this is kind of our space. This is we're the namers of these
yeah,
things internally and externally, and we're listening. Um, what a great
yeah.
what a great perspective to dive into. Where do you want to go
No, I
from
think
now,
so.
from here? I mean, Andrew,
Well,
this has just been such a rich conversation, and I think conceptually so much to think about and so much to. And what I like about a conversation like you and I are having right now is that there's so much room in it. So you listening right now, you can take something that piqued your interest and go and check out more of Andrew's work, or go and do a little bit of googling and really make it your own of how you apply this into whatever context you are. So with that kind of nebula, cloudy space, I mean, Andrew, balls in your court. Where do you want to kick this thing next?
well, thank you. Well, I recently, I would say over the last 3 months, took the plunge into independent consulting, which is terrifying. But great.
Thanks
So
thanks for your honesty.
but I'm terrible at I you know I'm the kind of person who I like to I would rather sit at home and I don't know if you can see this, for example, but the other night I was bored, so I was trying to recreate how Charles Babbage would describe engines. So, because I'm thinking maybe there's a way, because he created his own language to determine how things moved. Maybe there's a way there to learn from that you could apply to organizations, right? Because it's such a complicated way of existing.
Yeah.
I'm more that person than the I'm going to go out and go to a party and tell people what I'm doing or go play golf and generate leads and that. So I'm actually going to go for the shameless plug. It's really
No, go for
excruciating,
it.
but
And for those who are driving or riding a bike and listening right now, Andrew just held up a piece of paper with a very complicated drawing on it. So this is the frame that Andrew is talking about in terms of his space of thinking. So please show us how a humble marketer can just be honest about the skill set that they've hard earned, and you have earned it through hard work. So tell us about where you work, how people can find you, because what you've been speaking about today is incredibly valuable, and we want marketers out there to be ready for all the growth that's coming. So please, how do we find you?
Thank you, Josh. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at andrew@brandpublish.com. And I work with a company called Brand Publish. And our real focus here is how do we help organizations to not only do the best marketing from a messaging and a differentiation point of view and a value prop and an audience and how to reach them, but then also how do we help you embed the different ways of working, the different ways of thinking that we've talked about in this call to be able to take advantage of your messaging and keep it fresh as you learn. So if there's anything at all on this call or on this podcast, that people are interested in, please email me or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to continue the conversation. And if anyone is struggling with anything that we've touched on, I would love to help. So that's andrew@brandpublish.com.
And Andrew, I'll invite you to be a part of the conversation when we post this onto LinkedIn. That's always a great place. And we'll be sure to tag Andrew there, and he can answer any of your questions if you put them in the comments. And of course, you can listen to this anywhere the podcasts are listened to and find Andrew exactly where he has mentioned at his URL, which will be in the show notes. Final words from Andrew, our clairvoyant alchemist, and I'm going to butcher this word one last time, le homme mysterique.
I know. I wish to be at a point where those three words could apply to me. I would just like to thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I really appreciate it. And I'd like just to wish everybody out there good luck. And again, how grateful I am to be part of the marketing community.
Yeah, awesome. Well, reach out to Andrew, and we look forward to taking the conversation forward. We will see you in another episode very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. If you liked this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to outsource your marketing to our team, go to clearbrand.com.